Thank you very much for joining us on The Key Point. Now, the troubles for the Assin North MP, James Jechikwesin, remain pending as the outcome of court cases that are pending also remain an issue. And all of these seem to intersect clearly with a crucial decision on government's E-Levy bill that we are learning is set to be reintroduced before Parliament. Now, that is because the E-Levy we are learning is being withdrawn and will be introduced by the 11th of February or at the very latest, the week commencing 14th of February. Now, I'm sure some of you have also been monitoring the economic news, and we've recently been downgraded by Moody's to CAA1. I'm not sure what that means. We'll get the reason for that. So it seems government will continue on its charm offensive to get the E-Levy bill through, because those funds are much needed in a bid to shore up the economy. Meanwhile, the minority remains convinced that the government is doing all that it can using legal means to reduce their numbers in Parliament. All of these are up for discussion with our guests who are introduced later. But first, let's talk a bit about the Assin North MP's case. Now, as many of us know, last year, a court quashed his election as MP. And since then, there have been two issues running against him. First was the criminal process filed at the police CID by the NPP Central Regional Secretary, Richard Techi Mensah. Then he proceeded to file that case with the CID, asking they investigate him for filing, forged documents while he remained a dual citizen. We're learning that it's the outcome of that has resulted in the criminal charges of perjury and forgery that have been put against him. So on August 3rd, 2021, the CID investigations were put on hold because Mr. Kwesin filed an appeal at the Supreme Court. And I'll just give you the reliefs he sought in that regard. So Mr. Jechikwesin, in his appeal notice, insisted that the High Court acted out of jurisdiction by not referring the interpretation of Article 4.2a of the 1992 Constitution to the Supreme Court, and that has to do with dual citizenship and the like. And he is seeking the following reliefs in that case, which is pending: a declaration that the judgment of the High Court, Cape Coast, dated 28 July 2021 is void for having been issued out of jurisdiction, an order setting aside the judgment of the High Court judge, and an order setting aside the award of costs against the appellant in favor of the petitioner, respondent, and the second respondent, and then costs in favor of the appellant, and any other further orders that the court may deem fit. So let me bring you the other historical. So while he filed that, another case was put ahead at the Supreme Court, and that was filed by Michael Ankoma Nifa, and he dragged Mr. James Jechikwesin to the Supreme Court to restrain him from holding himself as an MP. And in that matter as well, over the last 2 weeks, there was an effort purportedly to serve the Honorable Jechikwesin, but because that could not be done, the Supreme Court could not proceed to determine the injunction that Mr. Ankoma Nifa was seeking against him. So that's the issues relating to the Honorable MP for Assin North, James Jechikwesin, and we'll be discussing that because the view is that that seems to intersect with critical issues relating to the E-Levy votes that will be coming up in Parliament. And he's not the only one. You also have former Deputy Finance Minister Kaizel Atuforsen, who had been dragged to court over payment of monies for ambulances, and he's on bail. But that issue also, the minority insists, was a way to try and reduce their numbers, of course, using legal means. So all of that up for discussion. But first, let's hear from Ken Oforiatta, because he put forward the government's case once again in Sekondi Takoradi. Government has been going round in a charm offensive to get Ghanaians to understand why it needs the E-Levy, why we all need to pay the E-Levy, and why it's making an effort to push through the bill so that it can kickstart the mobilization of that revenue. Ken Ofori-Atta is the finance minister, and he was speaking in Sekondi just last week.
So the sovereignty of the people and making sure that we live well as a confident people and people who earn their way, is paramount as we think through, this whole issue of our philosophy of how to fund ourselves so that we don't become dependent on outsiders, including particularly the IMF. We also looked at our own sort of fiscal consolidation in which we then said that we are going to try and reduce our deficit. This week, actually, I sent a letter out to all of my colleagues about our 20% cut in terms of expenditure to make sure that, we all work within that band. That 20% cut that we are prescribing is going to mean almost a 2.4% in GDP. Which then further brings the threshold down in terms of deficits and enable us to support our debt sustainability objectives and get a primary balance that is also positive.
So that's Ken Ofori-Atta, Finance Minister, explaining how government is taking steps to manage its expenditure. Because one of the criticisms of the government's economic policy is that it's seeking to push up revenue mobilization without seeking to manage its expenditure. The view by the minority, particularly the Honorable Kezelatu Forson, is that government's expenditure has gone out of control. And until that is tackled, we'll continue to dig ourselves into a debt hole. Well, one of the suggestions is that the government go to the IMF. Two things, for two reasons: to ensure that we have policy credibility, because the view is that the government has lost credibility internationally on the international markets, hence the downgrades by S&P and Moody. And then there's also the concern about having an institution at least keep tabs on how government expends its funds. Let's hear the finance minister responding to the NDC on that matter.
I think the NDC stands about not having E-Levy maybe misplaced, but it's not because they are not patriotic. But when we do the numbers, you realize that really we are at a point in our nation's history where we need to do things differently to be able to cross the issues that are confronting us with regards to youth employment, which affects all of us and really goes to the dignity of our people who are home, the issue of our debt, so that we can start mobilizing our own resources. But to be able to do that is to ensure that all of us contribute. The realization that the economy is shifting. And if it is shifting, then when do we get a head start at it to begin to understand that business? And also, therefore, to be able to raise the revenue required, because you can see 78 billion move into 953 billion, and you can see the trillions coming. And the opportunity, therefore, with digitalization to also then move to all of us being a part of it, And this sense that, this is pernicious, etc., you then ask your opposition people exactly where we are going to get this type of resources, in an economy that is growing, that is getting modern, that certain things must be needed so that the dignity of all of us is enhanced.
And that's Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister. So with all of these happening, we've got some reaction from MPs in the House in relation to the case relating to the Assin North MP. Let's hear them, and then we'll come back to our studios.
But what I know in law is that all suspects are supposed to be deemed innocent, hence proved guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. And if they are in that particular process, it will be wrong on my part to say that Honorable Kwesi is going to leave Parliament. Making that particular assumption will mean that you are predetermining the matter and you are commenting on it sub judice. I believe strongly Kwesi will not leave Parliament. He will continue to be a parliamentarian. Let me send this particular signal clear to Ghanaians that the 137 members of Parliament, we shall remain resolute, including Honorable Kwesi. You know, in the case of Honorable Kwesi, we have both the civil and then the criminal case going on contaminously. And I believed the courts will do justice to the case. It can't be nothing but using crude means to reduce the number. And he will continue to come to Parliament until the court otherwise stated so.
Based on the facts, if somebody wants to enter the hallowed chamber called Parliament, then should have dignity, because such crimes should not be associated with a member of Parliament. But I don't know the full facts, and it's not been proven. But for now, it leaves much to be desired. Yeah, that position is preposterous, because at the end of the day, you are saying that whenever they have a serious bill in Parliament, then the criminal laws of the country should be suspended. That's an absurdity. What is being charged with predated the E-Levy, is that not so? So if you won't give the Attorney General the credit to prosecute us when he wants to prosecute, it's up to you.
Welcome back, and those were some of the issues trending this week. But before we actually start with that, let me just take quick preliminary comments from our guests about what has been happening in Sekondi Takoradi. As some of you may have followed on social media, the MCE for Sekondi Takoradi was held by police for engaging in dangerous driving, and that led to a war of words with the policeman, one of which was a threat to transfer him to Enchi in the western region. The policeman kind of stood up to him, and since then, government, through the local government minister, the Honorable Dambuche, has had to take a swift action in spite of the court proceedings that have been going on. And so he's been suspended for now without prejudice to the case against him in court. So I'll just take quick comments from our guests. I'll quickly introduce them. We have the Honorable Joseph Kpemka, who is a former MP for Tempani, but former Deputy Attorney General. Thank you for coming. Also, we welcome Dr. Assin. It's been tough getting you here, so welcome today. He's the director for the Center for European Studies and a political science lecturer at the University of Ghana. And we have the Honorable Kujeto Ablakwa as well, who's also quite busy these days, the MP for Nocton, former Deputy Education Minister. Thank you all for coming. So first, I'll start with you, Honorable Kpemka, your comments on what's been happening with the MCE for Sekondi Takoradi.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to your cherished viewers, and good morning to my constituent, the good people of Timpani constituency. Good morning to my brother Sam Okujeto, and good morning to my brother Doctor. It's been long.
Yes, good to see you.
My brother was also telling me a few minutes ago, we're confiding in each other. It's been long. That's my very good friend. Anyway, yesterday at about dawn, I was going through reviews of some activities on social media and news outlets, and I saw a video clip of the MCE in an altercation with a police officer. In fact, I heard the sound at the background. I heard whatever transpired between them at the background. And I came to the conclusion that it was most unfortunate, it was sad, and it was not a conduct that was worth being done by a person of the sort that was involved in this activity. And so I got, my first and initial impression was total disappointment in the conduct of the MCE. Now, not long after that, the Office of the President, acting through the Minister for Local Government, issued a statement and indicating very clearly that he had been asked to step aside while the case goes on to its logical conclusion. And they were very careful in crafting that letter because it does not pronounce any guilt on the MCE, so that if in the end he's cleared, government could exercise the discretion of bringing him back to do his work. But it tells us something. What does it tell us? It tells us that all of us, and I applaud the police for what they did, all of us are not above the law. We're not above the law, and when we fall foul, we must answer for it. If you engage in dangerous driving and your attention is drawn to it, and your reaction is to tell somebody that you're going to transfer the person, that is a monumental abuse of office. Abuse of office in the sense that the person is acting within the remits of the law. The person is doing what the law permits him to do in the circumstances. And then your response to that person is that, do you know who I am? I am going to cause you to be transferred to NG. And that particular mentality, I've discussed it on this platform before, that mentality of transferring people as a punishment in our country is most unfortunate. Most times, I have said it, I have worked most of my life in the Upper East. And you find people from Accra, from the other regions, who are transferred to Upper East. And the majority of them, the reason for transfer is disciplinary. So question is it a punishment to work in those regions? Are those regions not part of Ghana? Are those towns not part of Ghana? To threaten that you are going to transfer somebody from Sekendi to Enchi. So Enchi is not part of Ghana? The human beings who are living there are not human? So even the derogatory remarks of the MCE towards the policeman, the insults, I don't want to repeat it because it's dirty this morning. So I could not fathom that an honorable man would stoop that low and make such comments.
Okay, so for you,
I couldn't fathom it.
So for you, at least, you are satisfied with the initial action.
The initial action is spot on. Just to add one thing, that you see, the policeman did what he did because he was of the belief that the top police hierarchy will support his conduct because he was doing the right thing. If he was afraid that if he does it, the top will not support him, even though he was doing the right thing, I don't think he would have acted the way he did. So he acted the way he did because he knew that he was doing the right thing, and when there is trouble, the IGP or the top will come to his aid. But this is just to sum up, and I have said this time and again, if this were, let's say, this conduct were carried out by, let's say, a member of the opposition, and then the police did arrest, what commentary are we going to run? Are we going to say it's political witch hunt? Is it political witch hunt? In that circumstance, are we going to come out with politics and run it down? I've so far heard from both sides of the political divide. It does appear that all of us agree that the conduct was despicable and the actions taken are in line with law to ensure that we bring everybody to order. That is why I'm saying that every time anything happens, we should comment with national and nationalistic attitude rather than political and parochial interest.
Okay. Dr. Asante, your thoughts on the actions so far?
Yeah, if you look at the situation, as my friend and colleague has said, it's just unfortunate. But the good news is that democracy is working. As a student of democracy, when disputes come in the state and they get to the court, then I'm happy. Then we are not going to have any arbitrary decision, but that decision from a competent court of jurisdiction, for me, is strengthening the frontiers of democracy and emboldening everybody to do what is right, so that at the end of the day, you can stand up and be counted. So for me, as a student of politics, it's refreshing, it's heartwarming, that democracy is working. What is also interesting is the fact that the government quickly also called for suspension. All right, that yes, let's wait till the court decision comes on, and then we can decide to engage him again or not.
But would the court decision really have a bearing on what eventually the government would do?
Oh, it depends upon what government want to look at. Yes, and it depends upon the verdict of the court. So I believe that, for me, the government also acted fast, swift, and then now they are in court. Let us wait for the court to make a determination on the matter, and we'll come on board. Yeah.
Now, Honorable Ablakwa, you have been at GII Transparency International meeting this week, where I've heard you speak about corruption. Part of the issues relating to corruption is also abuse of office. I know that as part of our anti-corruption action plan, we're supposed to provide training at the local level to local officials such that they don't act in a manner that is out of turn with the anti-corruption action plan. Does this just demonstrate that there's still ways to go with local officials? What is abuse of power, corruption, and influence peddling, and all those elements reflecting the MC's outburst?
Thank you very much, Jifa. Good morning to you and to my good friends on the panel and all our viewers across the globe. Certainly a very worrying spectacle, and it is to the credit of the new dispensation of social media, citizen journalism, that this matter was put out, recorded, put out in the public domain, went viral. There was such an uproar, national outrage, which could hardly be ignored. A lot of these things have been happening in the past, pre-social media era, and people abuse their office, they abuse discretion, they trample on the rights of people. It becomes a matter of you say, I say. The system is also powerful, and the vulnerable continue to be left unattended to. Their rights are violated, and they hardly get any redress. This is a new dispensation. Matters are quickly brought to the fore through the power, the might of social media. And I think that it is very, very healthy for our democracy to have this high level of transparency, to have citizens show keen interest in the governance of our country. What happened is so appalling. It exposes the mindset of that MCE. You work with the security agencies as chair of the MISEC. They are your colleagues. We are all public officers. Our constitution is clear that in Ghana, sovereignty resides in the people. The power belongs to people. They only put us in position as servants to serve them. When you misconduct yourself, and the police, who are cloaked with authority to rein you in, to call you to order, you do not pour scorn. You do not engage in such, despicable conduct. I mean, I certainly do not want to, rehash those words, but to even go to the extent of describing the person, calling him ugly and all of that. I mean, why? Is it a crime to be a police officer? I mean, he conducted himself in ways that are so abhorrent, and nobody, can attempt a justification or an explanation of his conduct. It is good that he was caught on tape, and I must really disagree with my good friends about government's action. I do not think that government has gone far enough. I will have opted for an outright dismissal Outright dismissal.
On what basis? Because there's a court case and we have to allow due process to complete. Absolutely. We cannot just make a determination that someone goes immediately, except if there is a specific reason why.
Your government would not be acting based on the court case. There's a reported case of misconduct. It's on video. It's clear. Right from the beginning to the end. I've watched all the videos. Look, it leaves you in no doubt that the gentleman misconducted himself. When you want to send a clear message to all government appointees that you will not accept the arrogance of power, you will not accept public officials, your appointees, treating the people with disdain and contempt, running short over them, this statement of, do you know who I am, and all of that. That is not the mindset that your appointees, government appointees, should have in a democracy. So based on that, you send a clear message. You fire him outrightly. Outrightly.
So I'm just asking, on what basis would you be firing him?
On what basis are ministers of state reshuffled? Are public officials? Look, the appointing authority.
Yeah, but reshuffles are different.
No,
they may not have done anything wrong. They just want to change the team.
And so even if a minister has done nothing wrong, and yet the president can ask him or her to leave office, probably the president is simply not impressed or thinks that others can do better. And presidents have done that always without owing us any explanation. Look, we need to have high standards. I followed the UK scandal when the health minister, Hancock, who was in charge of the protocols, social distance, don't hug, don't touch anybody. And he was caught on tape, hugging his childhood sweetheart in the office. Prime Minister Boris Johnson did not wait for some court hearings or some investigative committee and all of that. He was relieved of his position. Elsewhere, there are very high standards. You can cite Dominic Cummings when everybody was asked to stay put, locked down, don't go anywhere. Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's spokesperson, decided to go on his own frolic when visiting family and all of that. When he was exposed, he was dismissed. The British public said, we will not accept any excuse. There was outrage that, look, we are sacrificing a great deal. We could not even see our relatives who were sick die. We could not be by their bedside. We could not even be with them when they were in their last moments, and then we could not even attend their funerals. Then you, because of your position, think you have power. You are the Prime Minister's right-hand man. So the rules don't apply to you. The British public said, no, we have high standards in this country. We are not accepting it. He was fired. Now the Prime Minister himself, based on how Hancock was fired, Cummings was fired, the expose, and I've been reading the Sue Gray report, which confirms that there were boozy parties in number 10 when everybody else was under lockdown, abiding by the rules. He has come under heavy criticism. All the political parties, from Labour to Lib Dems, have said that he should resign. Even members of his own Conservative Party have said he should resign. All the polls, including the latest one by Sky News, which I have seen, more than 60% of the UK population say that he should resign. He's not fit for office. That's the Prime Minister himself, just for attending parties. He didn't go, with such high-handedness, such brutishness, such backwardness, insulting a police officer and, manhandling a police officer and all of that. And yet, so you see, in other jurisdictions, they have very high standards. And I think that is where we should get to. I recall President Mahama's era when a DC disrespected, his audience and said, who said chia, and had all kinds of words to say about him. He fired him outrightly. Of course, later on, I recall that there were some appeals by the chiefs and people, I think a year after, pleading that he has repented. He himself issued an apology letter, and so he was reinstated. He was fired by President Mahama. He was not suspended. So the president has every power. Let's not create, some difficulties and some wiggle room when there is none.
Okay, let me come to Dr.
We need to be
Assin.
sending clear signals to public officials that
Let me come to Dr. Assin,
you must
because
conduct yourself properly.
I think a reason why the president could fire him immediately would be, irrespective of what the outcome of the court case is, how can he work in that same municipality as head of the Municipal Security Council then? It begs the question as to what the relationship would be with the very people who are meant to protect that same municipality.
I think what my friend and colleague is saying, by stretch of that argument, then we are suggesting that the court is not even important.
Yes.
You just judge the person without going to court. We are saying that the person is not guilty until the court decides so, or otherwise.
Including all those tapes.
So now, if he's going to have his day in court, the process will go on. At the end of the day, whatever decision the president can decide to go for him or not. That is all.
But certainly the president would not be wrong if he feels strongly that as part of the code of conduct for public officers, he has violated it, and so he cannot continue in that position.
It's still the same argument. Then you are jumping the gun. Then the court is not important if you can take that decision.
Okay,
right.
so he's on suspension.
Yes.
We're not told if there's a disciplinary committee to look into what he's done. Maybe on a path to asking him to go. Maybe it would not be out of place that a disciplinary committee is set up to look into it. And I think the letter from the local government minister pointed to something like that, that an inquiry will be ongoing to determine, what else happens. Yes, Honorable Kpemka.
Yes. You see, if you read Article 19(2)(e) of our Constitution, it says that a person charged with a criminal offense shall be presumed to be innocent until he is proved or has pleaded guilty. What does that tell you? The presumption of innocence is fundamental to our human rights jurisprudence in this country. Presumption of innocence. No matter how you perceive that a person is guilty, no matter the evidence, video or whatever, pictorial, the person is innocent until he himself has pleaded guilty before a court, or the court has tried him and found him guilty. So if you take actions that are prejudicial, that make definite conclusions on a particular person's conduct, and it turns out later to be the opposite, what do you do? So for me, to say that step aside, you are not MCE between now and when judgment is passed. You are not. You cannot interfere in investigations. You cannot do anything. If in the end he's innocent, the president can exercise a discretion and say, go back to work, or exercise a discretion and say, yes, even though you are innocent, looking at the entire circumstances, I do not think that I will allow you to go back. All those discretions are there. But to say that all the president needed to do was immediately the tape came out and then we viewed the tape, even though we know that these days people can come out to say that whatever happened was doctored. Somebody can say so. And so you'll be looking for experts to come and authenticate that particular document and etc. So it is a rush to take any decision that later on you say that if I had known, I shouldn't have taken the decision. What is it? As we speak now, we are looking for justice in this matter. And to have the justice, President says, look, young man, step aside. Let's have the case conducted. When there's a judicial pronouncement on the matter, I'll then take a definite decision on it. Then we say we should have fired him outright and etc. When we know very well that there's a presumption of innocence. Look, if somebody on the streets of Accra picks a gun and fires at a person in the presence of 100 people who are witnessing that bizarre incident, do we outright take him to firing squad? Because our constitution says that a person guilty of murder is sentenced to death. You find the person in a public place, hundreds of people are there, and then he fires and kills a person. Do we pick him from that particular place straight to firing squad? No. We have to still take him through the judicial processes and find him guilty before we exact the punishment prescribed by the Constitution. So no matter how you perceive a particular person's conduct to be, the person is innocent until it's proven guilty or he has pleaded guilty in a competent
All right.
court.
So, Honorable Blackwell, that'll be your final comments, and I'll take a final one from you, Dr. Sasanti.
It is important that the issues are not obfuscated. Let us not muddy the waters. Going by the logic of this argument that don't engage in any prejudicial conduct, let the courts pronounce.
Let's uphold human rights.
Before you act. You are then defeating, undermining, actually contradicting what government has done. You can't in one breath be commending the president for taking some action, which I say is not far-reaching enough. And in the same breath, you are saying that no action.
He's talking about outright sack. Yes. He's talking about outright sack.
Look, outright sack.
There's a difference.
Outright.
What's the difference between step aside and you are dismissed?
Please, can I?
Yes.
That is why I say that the president has not gone far enough. If you look at the statement that was issued by the local government minister, the local government minister says, and I quote, "Without prejudice to the matter now before court, government takes a very dim view of the comments made by the Metropolitan Chief Executive during his exchanges with the police." Government takes a dim view. When you take a dim view, matters that have been caught on tape. Look, I'm talking about high standards. This same president, his deputy agric minister in his first year, when he made bigoted statements, my own colleague in parliament, he was relieved of his post immediately. So there are times that you can take action without prejudice to whatever. Look, the court outcome, the judges are not going to be interested in what, dismiss him or not. This is a criminal case before the courts, and we know the remedies available in statute books about assault, battery, and all of those matters, what he's been charged with. We are talking about governance, the governance arrangement, leadership by example, cracking the whip, sending a clear message to all your appointees that you will not countenance certain conduct, reassuring the people whose sovereignty resides in, who are really the custodians of power, which you have abused, reassuring them that no, I will not take this conduct from my MDCs, and that is why I have descended heavily on this DCE or MCE, and nobody can say that if this gentleman is fired, it is prejudicial or you undermining the court processes. You are not. You are looking at a separate arrangement within the governance architecture and saying that you want to send a very clear message. You want to crack the whip and you want to let Ghanaians and the whole world know that there is certain conduct you would not countenance, you will not tolerate at all. Okay. That's the message you will be sending. All
right. Dr. Assin, to your final comments, because I think the president and the administration of the NPP has come under fire for not taking swift action against whether it's bigoted comments by some of its appointees and members of parliament. It's been criticized for not taking swift action against public officials who may have acted in a manner that reflects abuse of power, in a manner that purportedly is linked with corruption and the like. This action, and since we haven't even done well on the Corruption Perception Index, which was recently released, maybe this action shows a sign of things to come, that this is the second term, officials need to be on the watch, the president will take steps against you if you act out of turn. Should that be a path the president should continue on?
Let us remember that this is also a decision. It's an action. You can dismiss or you can suspend. And the president had decided to suspend for now. For me, end of matter for now.
Welcome back to the key points. Now we can get into our substantive issue, but some of you have also sent messages, so I'll read them. Rahiz Welbeck from Kokomemle writes, "Good morning. Although what the MCE did was wrong, the question is, at what point should the policeman be allowed to start recording the MC? At what time did he also call the patrol team? I guess those are things that will be investigated." This one from Amankwa from Ahafo. Please ask Honorable Okujeto if he should let the law take its own course. Ask Honorable Kujeto, he should let the law take its own course before any action is taken against the MCE. I think they've debated that already, so you know the answer. This one says, I agree with Honorable Ablakwa because there is no correlation between the criminal proceedings before the court and the administrative actions against an employee. It's all about the code of ethics and organizational culture that management wishes to uphold. That's from Evans from Peki. This one from Sule says, our problem in Ghana is the way we turn everything into legal issues. Did the president seek the consent of the courts before appointing anyone? So on what grounds would he then have to wait for a court decision before dismissing the NC? Let's not hide behind legal issues to deal with indisciplined conduct. This one has no name. It says, I think the policeman needs state protection. Otherwise, something could happen to the policeman. Well, we hope that the policeman can continue to do his work, and I'm sure the IGP and the police service will continue to ensure that is done. And our final message from Shadrach at Nzema says, if the MC is fired immediately, is he going to be tried in court whilst dismissed? Actually, yes. This one says, I think the president has done the right thing. The MC, when found guilty, would serve the punishment for it. In previous times, when a public official has committed a crime, he is only dismissed and nothing is done. And that's not justice. Thank you very much, Shadrach, for your message as well. So let me start with the Honorable Kujeto Ablakwa. So this week has really been quite a topsy-turvy week in Parliament and with the courts, because we've been waiting to see the E-Levy bill come before the House with much anticipation, but it hasn't. So first, tell us, we are learning that it's going to be withdrawn and a new one submitted by the 11th or by the 14th. Is that the situation?
Yeah, thank you, Jifa. If you allow me just a minute to commend the new IGP, Dr. Dampare. I think he deserves enormous praise. You see how when you have strong leadership, and that's where I respectfully disagree with President Obama when he came to Ghana and said we need strong institutions, not strong men. I say we need both. You need strong institutions, you also need strong men to make the institutions even stronger. You see how it has permeated, and all the way you see a revived police force. They are energized and they know that they will be protected. Their IGP will stand for them and they will not be thrown under the bus. That is what we need. So everybody will be careful, no matter who you are. That's how, you know, a democratic constitutional republic should be. Nobody is above the law, and all of us will be mindful. And on our streets, in our transactions, everyday life, you will see that there will be discipline, and we will conduct ourselves in a better atmosphere. So the IGP deserves high praise for his trajectory so far. He should continue with his style of leadership, and this country will be better for it. Now to the vexed issue of the E-Levy. To respond to your question directly, fortunately, I came here with a copy of the business statement as was presented to us yesterday. Item number 4, page 1, Electronic Transfer Levy Bill 2021. Right, Honourable Speaker, as honourable members may be aware, the Electronic Transfer Levy Bill 2021 was presented to this House on Thursday, 16 December 2021 by the Honourable Minister for Finance. Right, Honourable Speaker, this House, in consultation with leadership and other stakeholders, continue to engage on some concerns relating to provisions of the bill. Members are reliably informed about efforts by the Honourable Minister for Finance to undertake sensitization tour in certain parts of the country to educate the citizenry on the need for the passing of the bill for the benefit of the economy. Right, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Minister for Finance has therefore given indication, after his nationwide engagement with the citizenry on the bill, of the likelihood of the withdrawal of the bill and reintroduction of same on Friday, 11 February 2022, barring any unforeseen circumstances. In the event that he is unlikely to withdraw and reintroduce the bill on Friday, 11 February 2022, he may do so on Tuesday, 15 February 2022. Right, Honourable Speaker, after the withdrawal and reintroduction of the bill, The Business Committee would program the bill for consideration during the course of the 4th week of this meeting, and honorable members are therefore encouraged to participate fully in the consideration of the bill for the passing of a good piece of legislation for the benefit of all, unquote. So that's what we were informed yesterday as regards the E-Levy. Now, this raises fundamental issues. First of all, before you announce such a major government policy, you present it to Parliament. It is contained in your budget. You should have carried out your broad consultations. That is what good governance is about. This is a major tax policy. You don't rush to Parliament. It's announced in the budget statement. You then present a bill hurriedly. And when everybody is caught unawares, key stakeholders, we all heard the Chamber of Telecom. We heard the telcos, organized labor, civil society organizations. We in Parliament, we were not engaged. We were all taken by surprise. Even industry people were taken by surprise. So it appears to me that we have turned the governance arrangement, the good governance mechanism, we've turned it on its head. We are doing things in the wrong way. You should engage in your consultations first. Take on board the views of everybody. That is what is required. Then the second point, which must be emphasized, is that even the sincerity of the new consultations that are going on, you want to question it. Because from where we sit, we are of the view that government has switched into this afterthought of a consultative mood because they do not have the numbers in Parliament. They have tried to pass this at least on 3 occasions, including the 20th of December, the 21st of December, and we all recall that unfortunate incident, which we continue to apologize for. Parliament should not be a place where we wrestle or we engage.
That made me not to miss Parliament
yes, I know.
Probably you would have been in the middle somewhere, so you wouldn't have been caught up.
No. He's like me. He doesn't have what it takes.
There are some of you who you just sit back.
No, we can't compete, you know. But I mean, it's regrettable, it's unfortunate, but it's all because of how, you know, laws are not being followed, the standing order is not being followed, the speaker knows, the deputy speaker knows that he cannot leave the chair and go and vote and wants to, and all of that. You see, it's murky, and we need to reset and get back on the path of righteousness, a path of honor and dignity. But you see, back to the substantive point about whether this is a sincere consultative process.
You don't think it's
you
don't think it's sincere?
I don't think it's sincere. It's because they don't have the numbers. Look.
So hold on. Which do you say is insincere? The consultations with the minority, or the ones, the town halls we are seeing rolling out?
All of this.
You don't think it's sincere?
It is not sincere. It is because, and look at even this convoluted, he may withdraw Friday 11th, or if it's not Tuesday.
I just read that as by the week commencing the 14th, the finance minister will come and do something.
So if you follow proceedings, our leader got up after this and said that, look, we will not be entrapped, we will not be ensnared. Because the deputy majority leader, Honorable Afenimaki, said, we can now even travel. Because of that, we've all been on the alert. Our 137 has been intact. We don't go anywhere. Now, given us, because we were told that it will be this week, Wednesday, it didn't happen. Then we were told Thursday, it didn't happen. Last week, actually, when we were returning from recess on the 25th, we were told that the first day, 25th. So we all came ready. Our 137 was intact. We didn't see key people on their side. The Honorable Sarah Ajasafu was not available. My good friend, Honorable Ejapamesa, was not in the country. He was in Canada. So they didn't have the numbers. So they pulled the brakes. You know, because that week, the speaker had served notice that I will preside. I want to preside over this matter. It's such an important national issue. I want to preside. So I'm ready for you. All week. And he had given indication that he would have to travel out for his medical review in the ensuing week. So he said this whole week, from the 25th to the 29th, I am available. They didn't have the numbers. Then they said they want to engage us. You came to engage us and you were still at where you were at 1.75. No shift. No shift on the principle, no shift on the rate, no shift on the threshold. We have said that, you know, worst case scenario, this tax, we have said first, our position is that you don't need it. You know, just cut down your expenditure. Worst case scenario, you should be looking at the rate and the threshold, which was our position earlier. They refused to listen to the minority leader on that. So there is that lack of sincerity. And we are clear in our minds that all of this is just to probably get us off guard. We think that, okay, E-Levy is probably no more on the table. It's not a priority. Then it is.
In addition to your two MPs who are facing threat of court action, the Honorable Assin and the Honorable Jechi Kwesi.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll come to those details. Let me bring in Dr. Asante. Do you?
There's a third.
Oh, what's the third?
Tomorrow.
The Honorable Afotofe. Her case, I think, is coming up sometime.
Yes.
The third week
and
of,
see, it just
February.
Shows,
yes.
It just shows the desperation of government.
Okay, so you just hold there. Let's not go into that because we now have to nitpick whether really government is using legal means in a negative way. So first, Dr. Asante, your initial comments about how this whole E-Levy process has gone with the minority, the majority, back and forth, no decision. Government is on a charm offensive going from region. Well, they've been to only 2 regions so far, but we assume they will go to other places.
Diva, it's very interesting. If you look at how far we have arrived here in terms of the E-Levy, then I would say it's unfortunate. Why am I saying that? Parliamentarians are representatives of the people. They represent our interests in Parliament. And that is why they go and hold debates in our constituencies, get the views or problems of the society, and bring it to the attention of government in Parliament. And of course, also take government policies and programs and go and tell the people. So what it means is that MPs represent us. Budgets, more often than not, prepared by the executive and seeks approval of Parliament. Once you get there, right, Parliament need to consult, need to discuss, dialogue, and at the end of the day, they are able to, you know, put all these things together in a very nice document, and then it represents us. If you look at the E-Levy thing, the first start, we lack these things. Yeah, this consultation, this consensus, and all that, they were conspicuously missing from the process. If you look at it, you realize that that's not the way to go. People talked about it, and now government is going around to do some, you know, consultation and whatnot. But I want to look at the whole thing from a broader perspective.
Okay, just a quick one before you move into it. Is the E-Levy unpopular? Is it overwhelmingly unpopular? That's what the minority says. But people accuse the minority that it is unpopular to them, not to Ghanaians. Do you think that the E-Levy is overwhelmingly unpopular? Before
you say that, you need statistics to back this. I don't have, but let me talk as a scholar and tell you that there are quite a number of Ghanaians who are not happy with that. All right. I, for instance, I support E-Levy, but the magnitude, the quantum, is where I differ. All right. But let's look at it. The problem that we have now in Parliament is lack of appreciation on the part of MPP that the Parliament we have today is not the old Parliament that we used to have many years ago, where you have majority always supporting, you know, because they have numbers, supporting their bills in Parliament and all that. I think MPP is still in that old era, and they think that things have not changed. It's very unfortunate. I want to be blunt. Because if you know that you have a hung parliament, 137, 137, then you need to judge. You need to be tactful and all that. And this is missing. This is conspicuously missing. And why is this so? You are not only seeing that in Parliament, but you are seeing difficulties in labor front, within MPP, other sectors. It tells me as a student of politics that there's something basically wrong, which government is not looking at. And what is it? They don't have a political officer. Because if you have a political officer, he will be able to gauge the mood of Parliament and tell you, this is a strategy, this is what you do.
I disagree with you on that, Dr.
Yes.
Asante. Your colleague is the director of research at the presidency, or your former colleague.
I'm not talking about my colleague, I'm talking about what I know.
So I'm just saying that they have a political officer.
No,
They do.
I am making a general statement.
Okay.
All right. They don't have a political officer because, see, what is happening in Parliament? You need a political strategist who will be able to know the mood of NDC and the strategy and how to counter them. What is happening in labor front? There is no solution from the part of government. All right. Within MPP itself, all right, they set the rules and they themselves are some leaders, of course not all of them, undermining the very institutions that they set for themselves. So you realize that there is a missing link here. The second point is that the opposition that you are seeing to the E-Levy is coming out of a number of factors, which I want to enumerate quickly so that my colleagues can also come in. One is the harsh economic reality that we find ourselves today. Take it or leave it. Even though government has done a lot for this country, you can also gloss over that. But where we find ourselves today, the economic reality is that things are hard, very, very, for us. So if you are bringing a bill, a tax like that, and experts, I'm not an economist, economists, financial scholars are saying that if you can purge it between 0.5 and 1, then that will be reasonable. And then government said, no, I am coming with 175. Then for me, it poses a problem. The other issue is what, and it takes me to what? Government posture. Government posture is not accommodating. Government is not ready to accommodate dissenting views. You see, governance is your ability to tolerate dissenting views. That is missing. You can never build a solid democracy when you are not ready to listen to what? Minority interest. All the time, people say that, oh, democracy, majority decision goes. But I tell you, if you want democracy to survive, you need minority interest to box it up with what? Majority decision. Because the two work hand in hand. Another point that is worth explaining here, under the stiff opposition that we are seeing now, is lack of consensus. You can never build any meaningful democracy where you don't dialogue. Where you don't dialogue, then you are telling us that it is a monologue, and that I am speaking. You either take it or leave it. And for me, you don't build a society, a democratic society like that. Of course, you will not be comfortable with some of the views of people, but that is the essence of democracy. You should have a big stomach to stomach some of these things, and then you agree to disagree, and we will move on. Another point also that has brought this stiff opposition is what? It's gradually appearing to me that NPP is having problems with credibility. And why am I saying that? If you look at communication, political communication on the part of the government, you realize that during campaign, they promised a lot. They made a lot of statements. Our Honorable Vice President was speaking all the time, and realized that these days people are picking some of the things that he said, and they are using it against him. In fact, as a student of political communication, all right, you realize that you don't speak much. Let the communicators speak. And when they make a mistake, you can come in and correct. But we saw our second, leader speaking all the time. And now people are holding him to some of the things that he said. And so one of the things he said is that, well, E-Levy is unnecessary. If you listen to his interview at Peace FM, all right?
I think that was, of course, it was about taxing digitalization.
Yes. And that is going to make the poor more vulnerable and all that. So the question is, what has changed? So then people begin to gauge your conduct with this. All right. You see, governance.
But Dr. Assin, aren't we being unfair? Because that was what, 4 or 5 years ago. Things have changed. The Ministry of Finance has given us statistics that
I don't have a
level,
problem. I am
that
enumerating some of the factors that have brought us
but
here.
the level of digital transactions has
Please,
almost,
I am not against digitalization.
Okay.
No,
not about digital.
Yes.
But the point is, government says $90 billion running through the economy. They want a bite of that.
I don't have a problem because I'll come to that. You allow me to flow. I'll come to that. Then the issue of corruption. You realize that the last election, NPP drummed to the ears of every Ghanaian that the NDC was very corrupt, very much so. The issue of corruption and all that. But I tell you, just go to the Corruption Perception Index from Transparency International. The recent one, I did some extrapolation from 2013 up to 2017. Time will not permit us for me to go through. But what I want to make is that if you look at Transparency International, their figures, from 2013, Ghana scored 46, all right, and it was on 63rd position. That is the beginning of John Mahama's administration. If you look at the end of John Mahama's administration, it scored 43 out of 100, and it was number 70. Come to the beginning of Nana Akufo-Addo, 40 as of 2017, and it was 81. And then come to the end of his first tenure, 43 as at again 75. All that I'm saying is that if you look at the Corruption Perception Index, you realize that NDC managed corruption very, very importantly here from the figures that we have. Let us not also think that these are perceptions. No, because those who collect the data are what? World Bank and then World Economic Forum. And so they are looking at what business groups and all that. And these are the things that normally politics, they play politics or not. If it favors a particular government, they say, hooray, if it doesn't. So it tells you the MPP use that corruption. And let us remember that one of the factors that influence voter choices is what? The issue of corruption. In fact, it is the third variable that people consider when they are voting. So I will not be surprised when politicians use that and use it more effectively. What is more on the corruption is that you remember when we were going for the election, they brought Airbus issue. Drum it. When we're going closer to the election, it fizzled out. And today nobody mentions it. Then I ask myself, is it true that that story is indeed the case or it's not? Because I wanted the government to move on and we have not heard anything. Let me come to one of the factors that explain the credibility problems is what? The loan campaign. NPP harp on that the NDC has taken a lot of loans, a lot. If you look at our loan, level today,
our debt is 337 billion.
If you compare to the last time NDC was leaving office, you realize that yes, as of 2016, we had taken 122 billion, all right, and then 2020, 291.6 billion. The difference is clear. The difference.
So for you, all these issues are the reason why there seems to be the opposition to the E-Levy. But it's good you've mentioned the numbers.
Yes.
So just hold that thought, because the numbers are the reason why the finance minister insists that we need E-Levy. We have debt sustainability issues.
I have two more. Then
okay,
we can move on.
I need to bring in
right.
Honorable
Yes, so that Honorable will come in.
He will speak for long because you've mentioned so many things that you have to respond to.
Then there is an issue of what? People are accusing the government of mismanagement. All right? In political...
Economic mismanagement.
Economic mismanagement. And they are citing issue of what? Auditor General reports 2020, 2021. So that a whole lot of money slipped through our fingers. We could not make use of it. We can also talk about state-owned enterprises, the losses in 2020. A whole lot of figures are also here. If you look at all this, then it brings us to the level of political science. We are saying that when we are talking about state capacity, that is the ability to use state resources to make life better for people. There are 4 areas. Once you lose capacity in the 4, you are in the area of what? Failed state. 1 is what? Regulatory capacity. And what is it? Where you can make laws and enforce them. All right. How far have you gone with this? All right. If you look at our Afrobarometer reports from 2020 and all the rest, people show disinterest. They are not happy with the way the law enforcement agencies work. They score them very low and all that. So it's a problem for us. You come to what? Administrative capacity, that we give you resources and you manage it for us. If you allow these things to slip through your fingers, all right, corruption, about 3 billion, JII is saying that about 3 billion slip through our fingers all the time, every year and all that. So then we are getting weakness in what? The administrative capacity. Extractive capacity is what? Where you generate resources to run the affairs of the state. I am not against E-Levy, no, because then the government will be caught here. The government is not doesn't have the ability to generate resources and run the affairs of the state. I am not against E-Levy. But my problem is that economists are telling us that, look at the condition now. It will be so difficult for the ordinary man to bear. So why don't you look at it from 0.5 up to 1? And that is where the difficulty lies. So for me, I am for E-Levy. Because if you look at the digitization process, this will enhance all the process, and then we'll get there. Okay. And my last one is what? The technical capacity, where we use expertise and technical knowledge to address problems. So we are saying that the things that are passing through, slipping through our fingers, we need to watch them carefully. All right? Even though I'm not against E-Levy and all that, but I believe that the consultation must be more. Because if you look at some of the things that we are losing, for instance, the way we give, tax holidays, tax exemptions. You remember the World Bank? People are also complaining about this. So my advice is that government will take it in good faith and then look at all these things and balance them up. There is no doubt that government has also contributed effectively towards building a solid society for us. There is no doubt about that. But there is a difficulty, which I have.
Honorable Kpemka, the floor is yours. I won't even ask any question.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to situate the discussion on the E-Levy in a certain context. What is the context I want to situate it? First, we are not in ordinary times. That I don't think is in dispute at all. We are not in ordinary times. And it is not only Ghana. This circumstance of us not being in ordinary times is not specifically attributable to Ghana alone. It is global. We were hit with a pandemic, and the ramifications of the pandemic are there, and the consequences on world economic order are grave. There is no disputation about that, and I know that a lot of people reason along the way I have stated this position. Now, when you are not in ordinary times, you have to, as a leader, take extraordinary decisions to stem the tide and reverse the negative outlook in order to position your state in a manner that will swim out of the quagmire and the pandemic safely to that land you desire. So you then need to take decisions. You don't need to sell ice cream to please people. You have to then take decisions that will actually bring the economy back on track. It is unfortunate that sometimes there are misrepresentations and a lot of politics go into economic management of our country. That is unfortunate. But if you look at the E-Levy in its real sense, as we describe it, and as we discuss and continue to discuss it, and the purpose of the E-Levy to our nation, as Doc has rightly stated, I am all out for it. You see, what we need to do is what is being done by the Finance Ministry with the other agencies, the education bit. Because initially, people tried to preach the message as if somebody was coming to rob another person. And that is why even at a point in time, I heard people running commentary and associating the implementation of E-Levy to sinister moves by people who have other motives against the state and etc. And I just couldn't reconcile that. Why? Jifa, when I was in sixth form, I had a teacher called Mr. Richard Orlando. He was teaching us government, and he drew our attention to an article, United Nations Structural Adjustment Program and Global Poverty. That was the title of the article at that time. And I went to read the article. I still remember that the whole architecture of IMF and the World Bank intervention in Africa at that time through the introduction of structural adjustment program was a fiasco. It sought at the beginning to restructure the system of those economies in Africa. But in the end, it woefully failed and rather exacerbated poverty. In fact, it created a big disconnect in the social ladder and increased poverty in its torrents in the various African countries. We moved on from structural adjustment and we started other relationships with IMF and the World Bank. Not just Ghana, but many of the African countries. Again, all the literature I have read about the IMF intervention in most of the African countries, 99% of those ones rather deteriorate the situations and circumstances of those countries. It does not help. I'm saying this because I heard a call by even people who are reputed economists that we should go back to IMF for policy credibility.
Because there have been decisions that have been made that have been missed, or decisions or policies that have been reversed. And if you cannot control your expenditure, if you cannot be disciplined and control your expenditure, you need someone to help you keep that discipline. That is the view.
Jifa?
That, and we've been downgraded again. I just saw the notification from S&P. It's on our news platform. We've been downgraded.
Jifa, I haven't seen also that, but Moody's have come to clarify that they were in error.
Really?
They've released it, and we are still at B+.
I'm yet
You'll
to see
it.
that.
You'll check through, you'll find it. But I'm just making this point.
Because as far as Jifa, everyone knows, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and even the finance minister referred to it on Wednesday, Thursday, that we've been downgraded and tried to explain.
Yesterday, I saw it on all most platforms.
Okay, you have to share a copy with me.
I saw it yesterday. Yeah. But the fundamental thing that I'm seeking to say is that E-Levy is not a panacea to all problems in this country.
True.
But it is coming at a time to serve as a revenue-enhancing measure to assist us to implement some of the lofty policies that government intends to. Let me put this across, Jifa. If we run to IMF, you know IMF, they will give us conditions. One of which will be freeze on employment, and they will even indicate that the public sector is choked. Go and reduce the numbers, and etc. And again, we come back and we are crying at the top of the roof of the issue of unemployment in the system. Graduates who are coming out of school.
Unemployment is the easy example that is used why the IMF is not good. But how about the expenditures? You are not addressing that.
I will address that.
Yeah, because the criticism is that this administration has borrowed over 200 billion since the last administration. And we've not really seen what the money has been used for. Just on Thursday, the IMF boss has been granting an interview. And he says they gave Ghana various amounts of money to tackle COVID, to buy vaccines.
See, you disrupt my...
Okay, I'm sorry. I just don't want you to go too off track. The point is that, yes, we know the conditionality of unemployment, but I think the bigger issue is what government expenditure is. That is the credibility.
I made a point at a meeting with some colleagues that perhaps what the government or MPP hasn't done is to put out a comprehensive list of the many projects undertaken across the country. A very comprehensive list of the many thousands of massive infrastructural transformation across the country. Road sector, then you have infrastructure by way of our buildings, in our hospitals, in our educational institutions, and etc. Massive. That communication has not been carried out. And so people talk about this issue of you've borrowed 200 billion. We haven't seen what you have used it for. No. Again, remember that in our economic march, some of the reasons for the increase in the amount stated as our current debt is not necessarily just the raw borrowing figures, but we also remember that the dollar, the behavior of the dollar to the cedi is also a contributory factor. Because if it was 5 cedis and then you converted it and say it was 5 billion, now that it has moved to 6 cedis, it increases.
It's 7.
So
it's 7
6.5
cedis to the dollar.
6.5.
Sorry, 7 cedis to the dollar.
6.5.
Oh,
it's not 7 cedis.
Honorable Ablakwa, is
kindly Google
the dollar?
6.5.
I've seen 7 cedis.
It's 6.5. Yeah. It's not 7 cedis.
2 days ago, it went to 6.9.
Yes.
Yeah.
7 cedis.
Point is that that is also one of the factors, as I've indicated. It is one of the factors that affect that. But to address some of the issues raised by my brother, first of all, he talked about His Excellency the Vice President having made some comments in the past when MPP was looking for power and is coming to hunt us and etc. Remember that His Excellency the Vice President at that time was the one who led the economic charge of the MPP agenda. That's fact. He led the economic charge. And he delivered several lectures at several fora, which well-meaning people bought into the wonderful and lofty ideas he espoused. So if today the Vice President had made a statement once upon a time, and today it has become necessary because of inflection of time, it has become necessary to go back and revisit a statement he made. There is nothing fundamentally wrong with having a change of mind based on inflection of time. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, if you look at the issue of the corruption perception index that he spoke about, you see, one thing I have realized is that, and of course you know the meaning of perception. It is not necessarily a reflection of the reality. When you talk about perception, look at the power of social media in the last 3, 4, 5 years. The power of social media, what it can do. When an issue breaks up, the way it is blown, and the way the whole atmosphere is charged up with people's contributions and agitations and etc. certainly cannot be the same as it was during President Mohammed's time, and will not be the same as it will be in the next 4 or 5 years. It will continue to increase. The momentum will rise. So the perception that we continue to have about corruption in any government will continue to rise because of the interest people continue to show.
In fact, it's because we don't have time. I don't want to get into the corruption issues with this administration. There have been too many clear examples that haven't been dealt with. And I'll give only 2. Galamsey, flying excavators, and purported political exposed persons related to the government who've been caught up in it. We've not seen anything done there. The former PPA boss who was indicted by Shraj and sacked by the president, there's been no prosecution of him. So I don't want you to refer to perception. And I think you've been on this show, and I raised this issue with you before. So I don't want to go into that because we are not discussing corruption today. But to say that it is just a perception, that is not fair.
Point is that Doc made reference to something, and I'm reacting to that.
Yes, you did.
But the examples you have raised.
It's part of the reason.
The examples you have raised.
It's part of the perception raised.
About the issue of the former PPA boss and etc. Are you aware that is being investigated by the police and they're building dockets on it? Are you aware?
It's a long time.
Are you aware?
It's a long time coming.
Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa,
but
as Deputy Attorney General, some matters were referred to me, my office. And for 4 years, I could not reach definite conclusion on them before I left office.
But yet,
and after I left office, some of those matters have been taken to court. So investigations and building of dockets in complicated economic crimes must not, don't just think that it will take 1 day or 2 days to conclude.
Certainly not.
It will not.
But it was easy to take Honorable Atufosin to court quickly.
Honorable Atufosin's case started in 2017.
Really?
2017. The investigation into that matter started in 2017. When I was there.
I stand corrected.
That file, I saw it before I left the office of Attorney General.
I stand corrected.
But you see, because of the timing, somebody thought that, it had been cooked to go against him because of E-Levy and etc. But that case had been pending since 2017 when I went into that ministry. So please, sometimes when we are not seized with the facts, we will think that somebody just took a matter from the skies and brought it and said, look, face these charges because I think you should face it. No. Again, E-Levy, fundamentally, finance minister has assured us of something. He said, hold me accountable. When E-Levy is passed, hold me accountable for the expenditure that we'll get out of it. We have tried IMF time and again. It has blown and backfired in our faces. We want to try something internal. Look, today we are benefiting from free senior high school. The parent in my village who would have gone to sell a cow for 1,000 cedis to go and pay fees will no longer pay. So if he's transferring 300 cedis and he has to pay 4.7 or 4.8 cedis as a levy to assist government generate revenue and run this country, at least we have to explain to them to understand that those little contributions together will make something good for the nation. I heard the issue of consultation. Honorable Ablakwa addressed it extensively. And I would like to say that he may have a point there, that it should have been before. But once it wasn't done, and it has come to the attention of government that this ought to be done, the processes have been triggered. And government is now engaging. And it started in the eastern, went to the western, and I know other places will follow suit. At the end of the day, people will be sensitized on this matter, and then they will buy into the idea. Then we can move on as a nation. But one thing, Honorable Ablakwa, have you realized that some of the things that I hear contradict? Because you say that we have not been engaged. But my position is that E-Levy, I don't support it, zero. So when they engage you, what are you going to do? You are saying that you don't support E-Levy today, you don't support it tomorrow. What will the engagement change?
Honorable Ablakwa, please you can answer quickly. I'll take a break.
That is the position the minority is
taking.
taking. The minority says
come back.
We are not in support of E-Levy today or tomorrow. So when they engage you, what are you going to change?
Yeah, so when you engage us, we will give you our well-reasoned position, the justifications we have for why you should come along with us. You see, the government mindset is that when you are engaging, at all costs, it is government's position that must be accepted by everybody you are going to engage. That is not an engagement. That is forcing it down the throat of the people you are going to meet. So come listen to us. We also have a strong position as to why we think that you should shift your position and abandon this. We have alternatives. I put out, for example, 9 areas in the budget that if you are desperate about 6.9 billion that you need to carry out your U-Start and other things, I put out an itemized list, concrete suggestions where you can raise the 6.9 billion. One, you have allocated 3.1 billion to Office of Government Machinery. I said you can take 2 billion from there. In the budget, you have allocated 933 million to the contingency vote. As for contingency vote, it's not really, it's miscellaneous, as and when, at the president's discretion. Last year, the 2021 budget, it was 186 million. You have increased it by a whopping 435% in just 1 year. 186 million to 933 million, almost $1 billion. I have said you can take 700 million from there. You will still have 200 million left in your contingency vote. I have also said, Gov't, you are going to give them 1 billion. This whole financial sector cleaner has been a mess. That 1 billion, take it. It will add up to the 6.9 billion that you are looking for. I have also said, for example, you intend to pay the IPPs 4.3 billion. Renegotiate with the IPPs. Let them take 3.3 and take out 1 billion from there. Ministry of Finance has allocated to itself 100 billion for what they are calling mortgage finance. It's been in the budget consistent for the past 3 years. We don't see, when we ask them to account, we don't really see what they are doing with that mortgage financing. They can't tell us any Ghanaian who is benefiting from this so-called mortgage finance. We are saying, take it out. These 9 areas, you get even more than 6.9 billion. You get 6.918 billion.
Okay.
So when you come and engage us, we can show you, we've been in government before, we can even show you loopholes. Look, for example, this country, and I'm glad that this week the World Bank country director spoke about it. There are too many waivers. Too many. Every time we go to Parliament, they are granting tax waivers. This is the same government
And
claiming that we are not generating enough taxes. And yet you keep granting these tax waivers to international conglomerates. Why? Why should that continue? Loopholes in the system, wastage. The Auditor General's report.
Okay,
As
so,
PIAC report, there's 1.2 billion of our oil receipts that cannot be found. Up to now, PIAC is still demanding answers. So we can show you areas
that they can be applied. Okay, so let me read some messages now so we can take a break. And someone's been sending me a message on the Auditor General's reports and the ratings. This is from a highly placed source. His name is Amwa. And he says, Ghana didn't lose 12 billion in 2020 as claimed. It says the facts presented by the Auditor General's report are the losses due to irregularities are from the 2016 to the 2020 financial year, not amount lost in 2020 alone. In 2016, the irregularities reported were 2 billion cedis. In 2017, 892 million. In 2018, 5 billion. In 2019, 3 billion. And in 2020, 2 billion. And a further breakdown of the figures will reveal that in 2018, 5 billion losses were about 4.7 million are tax irregularities from companies, individuals, business entities, individuals who have failed to pay their taxes after assessment by the GRA. All these people are being chased to pay their taxes. And the person also disputes the ratings, the economic ratings, says Fitch is B-, Moody's is C, Standard & Poor is B-. But I also sent the individual what we had received as of this month, because it's actually dated online. Let's take these messages, and this one reads, Maxwell from Tongo says, the MPP don't need to put out any list. Let the people tell their story, because in Tongo here, I can point to what John Mahama did in 4 years, but same cannot be said for the current administration. Henry from Koforidua says, I feel sad when people are defending the vice president's comments on the controversial E-Levy, as if when it's passed, it will exempt them. The E-Levy will be paid like the way we are buying high prices for fuel. George Tete from Hohoi says, the government is making us believe that without E-Levy, our economy can't survive. My question is, how was the economy surviving before E-Levy? Well, it's not been introduced yet, but the point is, how has it been surviving since? Farouk from Tamale says, there is no cause for alarm. The government should not be shy. They should just go back to the IMF. The E-Levy should not be the only resort to generate taxes. It just seems to me like a lazy way to collect money from the citizens. This one from Francis in Commenda. The government wants to use all strategies to force this irritating E-Levy on overburdened Ghanaians, despite the reaction from the masses. We thank God for this hung Parliament. And final one from Saibu in Tamale. The E-Levy explanation seems interesting sometimes. How can E-Levy at 1.75% from January to December be expected to generate about 6 billion, just as E-Levy at a reduced rate to 1.5 from February to December may be expected to generate the same amount? So I think what you're just trying to say is the government projections are on 1.75. If it's reduced, those projections will reduce. So we'll come back to talking about that. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll now have to bring in the Assin North MP issues. Thanks for staying with us.
Sometimes you just know that something ain't going good. You say to yourself, this ain't working for me. There be no shame in that, man.
Like when you don't got it?
Yeah, man, I mean, being smart means knowing when to stop. Know your limits.
So like knowing when to stop? Yeah, makes sense.
If it's not fun, choose to stop.
This advertisement is brought to you by Bet Power.
Glovo is the app that brings you anything you want. like a good burger and ending the day in a big way. Or what you need from the supermarket right away. Even some diapers and escape any wahala. Download the app, order a Glovo and we'll deliver.
It's a freestyle on Talented Kids. This week, our 16 contestants will dazzle you with special talents in music,
Praise up, me love the beat, yeah.
dance, special effects, rap, and many more. To vote your favorite contestant, kindly dial *713 *13# and vote or download the TV3 Reality app on Google Play Store or Apple App Store to vote. Join us this and every Sunday at 4 p.m. only on TV3. Talented Kids, free to play.
Talented Kids is powered by Indomie and brought to you by Deluxy Acrylic Paint, Vitamilk, Enapa Foods, Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, Puma Drinks, Flora Tissues, E-Panel.
Hey! Hey! Baby girl, for me, I'll buy you brother. Tell me who on you, mommy water.
Do you like meat?
Not a lot. Why do you ask, please?
Because of you, me, I will cut my hair.
Whoa. He's so hot.
My ex once told me that I was never going to find someone to love me.
What you mean? What you mean?
There are 5 girls waiting for me to choose between. I'm so happy.
Date Rush shows every Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it. Date Rush is sponsored by
Rush Energy Drink,
Airtel Tigo, Life is Simple, Fun Ice, Gino Max, Geisha, Close Up, and supported by Enapa Foods, Heaven Black Insecticide Spray and Mosquito Coil, Deluxy Acrylic Paint, Papa's Pizza, Darling Lemon, Freedom, HD Plus, Duffy's Health and Beauty, Camel, now from Carex, Touch Concentrated Perfume.
Thanks very much for staying with us. So we are still discussing a bit about the E-Levy, and then, of course, we don't want to be sub judice, so we'll bring in the Assin North MP issues as we have this discussion. So, Honorable Okudzeto-Ablakwa, your thoughts on the E-Levy? And I think the main concern now is, and I think I have a message here. Let me read it, because I think that relates directly to you, particularly those of you in the minority. And it says, good morning, Jifa. I trust you're well. I don't agree that we don't have a strategy. It's a 3-line whip, and the minority has ensured that the headcount process doesn't lead to dissent from their side. They have learned from the approval of ministers. They are also not ready for consensus beyond the scrapping of the E-Levy. So if, and I think it's similar to what Honorable Kwenka says, if you've taken a decision, what's there to discuss? And you've given the example of, well, I can show you where you can get 6.9. But is there a place where you can meet the government? Because the truth is we do need to improve revenue mobilization. $90 billion, according to data, is what moves to the economy. And if, conglomerates have built empires just based on some of that, there's nothing wrong with government wanting a bite of that. And shouldn't we at least provide some guidance? Many people are complaining mainly about the threshold, and the sense is that if the threshold is reduced, if how it is applied is amended, people will open up.
So, first of all, on the matter to do with our posture and whether we are willing to engage and to build consensus. We have stated time without number that the way Ghanaians voted in 2020 is a clear message that they want us to work together in Parliament. They do not want one side to have a comfortable majority and run amok, so that what has characterized this Fourth Republic of the majority will always have its way. The minority can only have their say. Ghanaians say that, look, we are fed up with that. It's created a rubber stamp parliament, a weak institution, which has not been able to carry out checks and balances. And the whole essence of democracy, once you remove the pillar of checks and balances, your democracy is wobbly. And that is why Ghanaians have voted the way they voted. I even believe that the NDC was given a parliamentary majority, but we all know the shenanigans that happened. Now, we have a hung parliament. It is for our colleagues, as Doc has said, to realize that, look, we are now in uncharted waters. It's a different climate altogether. You cannot continue with your majoritarian mindset. You need to be more conciliatory. You need to be more engaging. So it comes back to the point of sincerity, of process. If you look at our constitution, Article 106 is clear. When you have come to Parliament and laid your bill, and the Finance Committee has presented a report to the House for the second stage of consideration, so Parliament is now going to debate. The matter is no longer in your hands. It is in the bosom of Parliament. So if there should be further public engagement, it is Parliament that should do it. Like the private members' bill on LGBTQI, the anti-LGBTQI bill. It's Parliament that is engaged in the public consultations. But in this case, once again, the process has been turned upside down. We are disrespecting Parliament, undermining the legislative organ. You have presented a bill to Parliament. Finance Committee has met, deliberated, presented its report. Article 106 of the Constitution is very clear. Our standing orders are very clear. It is now seized by Parliament. And yet, Parliament has been stopped. We have been muzzled out of the process. And we are now sitting, waiting for the finance minister, who now, after the fact, claims to be engaging in consultation, all just
but how will Parliament consult if you can't even agree among yourselves?
Yes. So it tells you that there is clearly a challenge with the respect for the laws, respect for due process, respect for our standing orders.
You disagree on
now let me come to my colleagues have spoken extensively on the substantive matter of the E-Levy. Look, we are very clear in our minds that we are where we are because this economy has been run aground. There's been total mismanagement of this economy, and the data is very clear. I have here World Bank data comparing our peers. Budget deficit for 2020. Côte d'Ivoire did 5.5% budget deficit. Togo did 4.7%. Burkina Faso did 5.4%. Benin 3.0%. DR Congo 1.3%. Tanzania 1.8%. Ethiopia 3.0%. Guinea 3.1%. Sao Tome and Principe 5.0%. Only Ghana, amongst our peers, only Ghana did 15.2% budget deficit in 2020. Because election year, we want to buy votes. Let's throw money at the people. That is what has come back to bite us. Again, looking at the data, GDP growth, IMF and World Bank data for 2021. Côte d'Ivoire grew by 6.0%. And you recall that because of his special friendship with President Ouattara, when he was in opposition, President Akufo-Addo used to really, compare us with Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is doing so well with their GDP growth. Togo, better GDP growth than us, 4.8%. Burkina Faso, 6.7%. Benin, 5.5%. Guinea, 5.2%. Even that the people were not happy, it led to a coup. They are celebrating the coup makers. We'll discuss that later. Ghana grew at 4.7%. That's projected. 2020, it was worse. We grew by 0.4%. At the time, Cote d'Ivoire was growing at 2%. Benin was growing at 3.8%. Ethiopia was growing at 6.1%. Guinea was growing at 7.1%. So this economy has been run aground.
But these countries you mentioned, their tax to GDP ratio is much higher, going as high as 18% for some of them.
I am glad you talked about tax to GDP ratio. That is another myth. And here again, data from the World Bank. If you look at our peers, Ghana, we are currently doing a tax to GDP ratio of 12.2%. Cote d'Ivoire is doing only 12%. We are 0.2% more than Cote d'Ivoire. Angola is doing 9%. Equatorial Guinea is doing 9.3%. Ethiopia is doing 6.7%. We have a better tax to GDP ratio than Ethiopia. Gabon is doing 11.5%. Guinea-Bissau, 9.5%. Sudan, 7.8%. If you look at lower middle income countries, the average, according to the World Bank, is 11.7%. That's 2018 data. Germany, as of 2019, they are doing 11.4%. The government of Ghana is collecting more taxes from the people than the government of Germany is collecting from its citizens. That is what the World Bank is saying. And if you go to the World Bank there, I can give you the link, www.worldbank.org, indicator gctax.totlgdzs. Viewers can check the data. It is clear. So this erroneous impression that, oh, we are not collecting enough taxes, virtually everybody is evading and all of that, the data does not support it. Now, let me also state, my brother Kwenka says that government has not done well with, putting out a story and listing comprehensively its achievements. You don't need to list your achievements. President Mohammed's Terminal 3, everybody sees it. We don't have to be drumming it down people's throats every now and then. People see the Ridge Hospital. People see the Circle Interchange. People see the Kaswa Interchange. And President Mahama did not have the resources that you have had. We have done a conservative analysis of how much you have collected in taxes, revenues, oil, gold. We've put all of that together, including all these, inflows, a windfall from the World Bank, IMF, COVID. You benefited so much from COVID. If you put all of that together, conservatively, very conservative, over the last 5 years, this government has been blessed with at least 450 billion Ghana cedis. President Mahama didn't have that. The NDC didn't have that. 450 billion Ghana cedis. That's why we have been asking, if 450 billion cedis could not save you, what can 6.9 billion do? And this 6.9 billion projection, and that's a brilliant text message that came in. You see, we underestimate Ghanaians. They are so discerning, they are so smart. You are talking about reducing the incident to 1.5, no longer 1.75. You projected in your budget that you start collection, latest February. Here we are, you are saying that probably if we are lucky 15, 16 before you come and withdraw and all of that. January is gone, February is gone. I mean, you can't meet this target. Even when you projected in December, the telcos, the Chamber of Telecom said that it is a very wild projection. It will not be met. So if 450 billion Ghana cedis couldn't save you, and we don't even see, you don't have any project that compares to Mohammed's Terminal 3. You don't have any project that compares to the University of Health and Allied Sciences, the University of Energy and Natural Resources. You have no project that compares to the Ridge Hospital. You have no project that compares to the Circle Interchange, the Kaswa Interchange, the Fufoso Solar Road.
But
you have no project.
These projects
and yet,
you are mentioning,
yes,
they are big,
yes,
concrete
exactly,
physical projects.
Exactly.
But
which
you are supposed to be a social democrat. Rather, the NPP has been implementing pro-poor policies.
Please,
they've been providing social intervention. Free SHS.
I'm glad you've talked about that.
Free SHS.
I have done, and I encourage you to do so. I have done, because UNESCO has said, if you want to assess the commitment of governments in education, that they are really spending in education, look at it by share of GDP. What is the ratio? What's the percentage of GDP they are investing in education? And UNESCO has said that the minimum should be 4 to 6%. so that then it shows that a government is serious. Are you aware that in our history, at least the Fourth Republic, all presidents have done well? President Mills has the highest record of 8.1%. President Mohammed's worst performance was 4.5% of GDP on education. Are you aware that Ghana has dropped to 3.1%? That's what we are doing. Consistently, we've done 3.5, 3.2, 3.1%. That's where we are now.
But that
no wonder if you come to assess, if you come to assess,
they reintroduced the teacher training. They reintroduced, they built all these infrastructure in schools to accommodate free SHS.
I'm glad you are giving me the opportunity to expose all these myths.
So I'm just wondering that if government has done all these things in education, there have been additional infrastructure provided in health. In the schools.
I know. As your work, you have to. You have to play the devil's advocate and all that. But he himself, Honorable Kwenka himself, when he was let's list the comprehensive. I thought he was going to give us some examples, specific examples, and yet he didn't. No, please. When you were speaking, I didn't. No. You write it.
No, let him make the point quickly and then come in.
Go and look at the statistics of number of kilometers of roads asphalted by NPP against NDC. Go and look at it. More than 3 times.
What is the figure?
That's number one. Number two, have you looked at the concept of the model schools? Have you looked at it? Have you seen the stage it is? It is not E-block that you go to build in the bush. Have you seen the model schools?
I swear, mention one.
Have you seen? I know one at Passingpe. I have been there. At Passingpe, I have been there and I have seen it. I went there. Look, I was doing a consultative.
This is my time. You only asked for a second.
I cannot count.
Okay, so good. That point.
Yes, I always cannot count. But then they cite one. So you need to wrap one pathetic example. Okay, so back. So
you need to wrap up on that quickly.
Back to my time. Look, this is a government that has borrowed over 200 billion Ghana cedis and has been shambolic in accounting for it. Look, what is even annoying Ghanaians the more is the contempt with which it treats us anytime we demand accountability. That is why Ghanaians don't want to pay more. Already, we are overburdened, as the World Bank data shows. We are doing a tax to GDP ratio higher than our peers. And yet, anytime you have asked this government to account, look at the ordeal, the torture I have gone through, demanding that the president account for his sybaritic, ostentatious, profligate, extravagant presidential travels with a chartered aircraft, luxurious chartered aircraft. When there is a functioning presidential jet, which is in mint condition, in pristine condition, other African presidents are queuing, begging us to use that jet. And sometimes we are generous to them, we give it to them to use. Our president says that our jet is not luxurious enough. The defense minister came to Parliament and said that the president cannot bath in the sky. So he's become known as the sky bath scandal. The finance minister would not account to us. I mean, look at the contempt, the arrogance of power. After several months in Parliament, he came and said, go to the National Security Minister. The National Security Minister took me on a wild goose chase. When he finally showed up, after another 8 months, he said, it's a national security matter. Meanwhile, Parliament has always interrogated presidential travels. In 2019, we knew that President Akufo-Addo spent 69 million cedis on presidential travels. Suddenly, because they have been caught out, they've been exposed for this expensive, ultra-luxury, unconscionable, profligate travels. They don't want to account. They are hiding under national security. And you see, it is one of the reasons why they don't want to go to the World Bank or the IMF. They cannot go to the IMF and be under a disciplined IMF regime because of things like this. Look at even the allocations in the budget. You are telling everybody to tighten their belts. Let's burden share. If we are really to burden share, why is it that everybody takes a cut, including even the health ministry, in the midst of a pandemic? Ghana is the only country in this world where in the midst of a pandemic, the health ministry takes a haircut, a budget cut of 2 billion. And yet, when it comes to money to themselves, look at the allocation to the Office of Government Machinery. From 2.5, it jumps to 3.1 billion. Look at the allocation to the contingency vote, which is under the control of the president. It jumps from 186 million to 933 billion. Is that burden sharing? You say burden share. And when we expose you in May,
933 what?
Yes, 933 billion, the contingency vote. You can check the budget. Check page 252 of the budget. The contingency vote has jumped from 186 million to 933 billion. A quantum jump of 435.1%. And you say burden share. Now, why
So
they
you
cannot
need
why
to wrap
why
up
they
for me?
cannot go for a fund program is that the IMF will not allow President Akufo-Addo to abandon a presidential jet, which Parliament was told has a lifespan of at least 20 years. It's done only 11 years. And we are told it's not luxurious enough. Anytime you see the LXDIO parked in Ghana at the Kotoka Airport or the ACJ 320 Neo, those ultra-luxury jets the president is using, remember that there's a 7-member crew that is at Kempinski that we are paying for. That is separate from the $14,000 an hour. IMF will not accept these things. They would have to cut down on their extravagance, on their ostentation. That is why they don't want to go to that.
And they are still pushing the E-Levy.
Let me conclude.
Yes.
Let me conclude by saying that, look, in times like this, when a policy measure is so unpopular, and I have seen the data. I've seen the one that Musa Dankwa has done, Global Info Analytics.
And there are two
I have
others.
seen the
there are
one
two
that
others.
UPSA has
I
done.
think there are two
I've
others
seen
even
the-
by government,
Yes.
because
I have
government
seen-
says that as of December
Yes.
2020, the use of transactions
Yes.
had dropped in December
Yes,
alone.
yes.
But then
And-
they project by 37%, but they project that when the E-Levy kicks in, it will drop by 24%.
I have seen the data from the UPSA. I have also seen a poll by your colleagues in the media. I haven't seen any poll that is below 80%. The level of resistance, the direction for this tax, the outrage that Ghanaians are showing, I haven't seen any policy in my lifetime that is so unpopular. Look, I did a poll in my constituency, and it was a live poll, a town hall, and I asked the citizens to vote. Because ahead of the return to recess, I said, look, as a member of parliament, I should have a clear mandate for my people. I've been in Accra thinking that I don't support it, but what if my people support it? So I invited the chiefs, all the political parties, everybody. It was an open town hall, the public information center, community radio, so everybody announced that in a week's time, the MP is holding a town hall on E-Levy. Everybody come and share your view. And we took a vote. We invited electoral commission, everybody, we took a vote. Guess the outcome. 331 said they are opposed to the E-Levy. Only 4 said they support it.
Okay.
This is so unpopular.
Okay.
Finally, let me show you what President Rawlings did when he was introducing VAT, and it was so unpopular. President Rawlings, and when he was introducing at the time that he didn't have a hung parliament, he had one-sided parliament. Our colleagues had boycotted the 92 parliamentary elections when they lost the presidential. They decided to rather go and write a stolen verdict and stay out of parliament. So President Rawlings was in full command of parliament, of every institution of state, all the levels of power. And yet, President Rawlings, because of the opposition, when there was that massive demonstration and all of that, he withdrew VAT. And this is what he said in his sessional address on 12 January 1996. And I'm reading from the Parliamentary Debates official report. That's the Hansard of Parliament official record. So it's not my creation. Column 8 of 12 January 1996. President Rawlings said, and I quote during the sessional address, Mr. Speaker, one major factor which upset the government's budgetary calculations for 1995 was a reaction to the value-added tax. There can be no doubt that the VAT tax system offers the most simple, fair, and effective way of collecting revenue. Then there was However, in our case, major weaknesses soon showed in the planning and implementation of the VAT program, especially in the area of public education. The government therefore withdrew the tax in response to perceived concerns. But we have paid a very heavy price for this. Anticipated revenue fell short of expectation, limiting the government's ability to absorb the demands of its employees. Mr. Speaker, Let me, however, assure the nation that this government has no intention of trying to sneak a disguised VAT past our people. We will ensure that the average Ghanaian has had a better understanding of the advantages of the system before we revive it. And there is no doubt in our minds that the minute they understand it, and that educational effort is being complemented by the law enforcement agencies, this tax system will bring us what is required, what we have projected, unquote. This is
so that was the outcome
yes,
of that.
It was withdrawn for 5 years before it was reintroduced.
That's so you want E-Levy to be withdrawn
E-Levy
for
must
5
be withdrawn.
years.
President Akufo-Addo, who was then leading the demonstration, the Kumipreku demonstration, should learn from what President Rawlings did.
Okay. All right. On that note,
he styles himself as a better Democrat,
as a human rights activist. So you get the final point on Abu Pemka. So, Dr. Assin,
that is a true leader,
yes.
a true Democrat.
Yeah,
goodness.
Thanks for the opportunity. I want to conclude by saying that MPP, once you are in governance, once you've been given a mandate, you need to govern. And that one of the things they can do is to work towards political communication, which I've said. If you look at the 6.9 billion that they are saying, economists are saying that that money, even if you get all, that will not solve all your problems for you. There are some people who are saying, former chairman of Parliamentary Finance Committee, saying that you can even get 5 billion, not the 6.1. All that we are saying is that, look, some of these things, they have to think through, they have to reflect, they have to discuss and come out with something that will stand the test of time. And then they must also, why people are agitating, is simply because look at all the monies that have slipped through our fingers. If you look at the irregularities from Auditor General Report, which I copied from City News, August 11, 2021. It's a 2016, 780 million slipped through our fingers. 2017, 12.0 billion. 2018, 3.0 billion. And 2019, 5.4 billion. 2020, it's at 12.8 billion. The list is very tall. We are saying that for administrative capacity, once we're given power, we're giving you all the resources and we're giving you all the perks, all the niceties, so that all that we expect for you, that you should be able to have prudent management of the state resources. Once you do that, anytime you are asking for something, somebody can come out and say that, well, you deserve that. And let government also, be plain with us that, look, I am in crisis, I'm in difficulty. So please, if you have any ideas, help us. There are a lot of ideas begging for people to tap. And why is government shying away from this?
Do you think that government should withdraw the bill and come back much later when tensions have, really gone down, cooled down? It may be a year, it may be 2.
For now, they need to reflect on that. They need to reflect on that. But one thing that they should also work at is what the tax exemptions. They're becoming too much. And it's worrying the state. These are things that can, allow you to make more money. The Japa deal, for me, I support it. Bring it for discussion. Because if you look at the concept, it's a concept that when you look at it carefully, people discuss it, is going to really help this state. All that I'm saying that they should extend the means by which they can get money. So you don't limit it to what? E-Levy. Let us remember that somebody developed mobile phone, and you are taxing on it. Let us also develop something so that one day you can put a tax on it. All right? And then, you see, I support the government 1D, 1F. And when Kufuor was in office, he went to Creek, and he saw a lot of things that Ghanaians have been able to make out of cocoa. And all these things will give us various industries, pebbles, chocolate, and all that. Why have you abandoned that path? We need to go there, strengthen the frontiers of that exercise, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to rake in a lot of money and then cure this problem of unemployment in this country. Then my last point is that let us all make sure that we want to be very careful when we are dealing with what the economists call the political business cycle. What do we mean by that? We are saying that when we are going for election, you see whether government is in power or whether a party is in power is in opposition. They will tell you that, give me power and I'll build a solid economy for you. And I tell you, once they are given power, you see a demonstration of that effect. But when they are going for election, the very economy that they've spent all their time to build, they are ready to destroy. By throwing money away, all economic theories are thrown to the dogs. And then after election, we come back to where we are. I think this advice goes for all the political parties. They must look at this well if they really want their work to stand the test of time.
All right. Yes, Honorable Pemka.
Jifa, my direct response to my brother would be that they did not have a comprehensive implementation of free senior high school under them. MPP has done. Planting for food and jobs, the investment in agriculture, they did not have that. The subsidy that we have had, they did not have that. MPP has done that. Teacher trainee allowance, they did not have it. We have restored it. Nursing trainee allowance, they did not have it. We have restored it. Employment in the various sectors of the economy, DS, because of conditionalities of IMF, they did not. We have done that. That is just one aspect of a big problem that we have in this nation. He should respond to those specific ones. And apart from that, I mentioned roads. He should tell us the statistics about roads. I've told him that we've done more than 3-4 times what they did in the road sector. And I've spoken about education. Again, Agenda 111 has taken off. Look, let's go and look at 2016 and 2015 State of the Nation. His Excellency former President Mahama, with specific reference to my constituency, he has stated that the hospital project in my constituency was at a very high state of completion. Meanwhile, not one block had been laid there on 2 occasions. Today, it's part of 111. The contractor has taken possession of site and moved to site. Look, we are talking about practical things. At the end of the day, when we do a list in various constituencies and compare what you did and what we did, you come nowhere near. I've spoken about these policies that are enumerated and enumerated, about the various parts that we did in the last 4 years and we are continuing to do. If you want to know what the money has been used for, these are the areas of investment and we are thinking about tomorrow. Look, you can go and put up skyscrapers across the country. If at the end of the day you don't have the human resource base, you get it wrong. Look, a statement was made once upon a time by one of the current ministers that, look, if all governance is about borrow and put up infrastructure or build skyscrapers, anybody can do. The person made that statement, and I do agree with what the person said. Look, you have to think and come up with innovative ways of ensuring that you move the nation forward, and that is investment in the youth. One of the biggest threats to our security is unemployment. The thousands of youth that we churn out from our various tertiary institutions yearly without recourse to putting up measures that will accommodate them is a threat to our peace. Now, the finance minister has stated in categorical terms that money generated from E-Levy, a majority of it will be plowed into ensuring that we have many more entrepreneurs and the youth are encouraged to set up so that we can fight this canker of unemployment. But if we decide that all that we want to do as a nation is to channel 90 to 100% of our resources into putting up skyscrapers for people to clap for us without looking at the realities on the ground and what can affect the poor directly. Look, I have stated, Jifa, if we withdraw free senior high school today and rechannel the resources coming from that into other areas, parents will be required to pay a minimum of 1,000 or more. At the rural area, do you know how it is difficult to raise such an amount of money to let your child go to school? That genius out there will not be able to go to school. So we have invested in there. So if we are now asking Ghanaians to pay 1.75% of whatever they transact through mobile money to contribute as a quota to national development, it is a plea, and we are educating the people to that effect. I think it is only fair that we give that chance or opportunity to government, because at the end of the day, look, I have said it, and let me repeat, that we are not in ordinary times. And the finance minister has stated it in categorical terms. In order not to collapse the economy, we need to take certain actions. Some of the actions may be unpalatable in the short run, but in the long term, it will be to the benefit of this country. That is
what
why
about the expenditures? The expenditures that Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa raised.
You see,
the allocations in the budget. Isn't that something to be looked at?
Jifa,
I mean, I've received a message here that tells me that those are allocations. It doesn't mean they've been expended.
That's what I wanted to say.
But the question is that how can we be sure? How can we be sure?
Why do you even allocate all of that to yourselves when you are calling on all of us to burden share?
As having been in Parliament for 4 years, and having been in the ministry, and having sat with my boss to look at our budget and etc., there's a vast difference between allocation and releases.
But allocation is license to spend.
Yes, license to spend, but there's a vast difference between allocation and releases. And you know, the releases are based on resources.
That is with other MDAs, but not with the Office of Land Machinery.
Resource availability is very important.
Contingency vote.
So having done all those things, and remember that the projections we made in the budget that was passed by Parliament, in which my brother Honorable Akujeto Blackwell is part of it. Remember clearly that in that budget, the E-Levy was factored into it. That's a fact. So what we are doing now is we are approbating and reprobating. We've gone far by saying that we've approved it in principle. Now the implementation, we are saying
no. So the finance minister can always come back mid-year to provide new.
Yes, you know that the E-Levy is a separate item. It's coming as a bill.
No, I agree.
As a bill, yes.
I agree, but it's part of the general budgetary projections that were made. The revenue source that was meant to finance all these things that are
in the majority leader went to make that argument. When he came to the chamber, he couldn't repeat it.
Okay.
We took him out.
So we need to wrap up on this. So your final point.
My final point I want to put across is that this idea of always pontificating projects that were done by Mahama and that MPP has done nothing, it is completely false.
He didn't say MPP has not done anything.
No, it is completely false. And I've told you that even if you go to interchanges, that's why I'm saying that one day we may have to sit down and put these things on a projector. Okay. Number of interchanges being done by the current government, number of bridges, major bridges being constructed by the current government against the former government, you will know that there's a vast difference.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Kpemka. That's where we have to end it on this segment. And it's still key points. We have some 25 minutes. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back to deal with issues of ECOWAS.